should come on together, that would be so together. We can weather any storm. If we should
No doubt. Peace to everybody. The Hood Mystic, representing www.hoodmystic.com. Had to run up the stairs real quick. Catch my breath. Good to be back. Happy to be back. Just been on a little sojourn with my family. Did a little mound tour. More on that later. But you know, feel refreshed, refocused with my content, with my channel, with myself, with my family, my life, my soul. Everything's moving in the right direction. But had to actually step outside of the matrix for a second and kind of really connect to those ancestors and really get the clues and the answers that I've literally been searching my whole life for. And so today, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the upcoming new moon, which takes place 9 days from today on the 31st of July. And so we're going to work with some themes and some understandings and hopefully connect some dots. The title of this video is Connecting to Your Soul Group, which really symbolizes Cancer. It symbolizes connection. So Cancer, in effect, is very clear, very apparent, but we may not have all of the courage to actually realize it. So in order to explain Cancer, we can pull from the exoteric, and once we establish an exoteric foundation, we could then proceed into the esoteric. So the exoteric fundamental understanding is crabs in a bucket or the crab mentality. We've all heard that before, right? You know, somebody is always trying to hold you down. Somebody is always jealous of you, envious of you. Nobody will support you the way that you need to be supported. Maybe I'm speaking for myself. But, this overall, you know, process of alignment and being with people who can hold you up versus hold you down. So in that space, you can understand how that same grouping that could feel like these people pull me down, these people hold me back. You could then get aligned with some different crabs, because I've also seen videos on YouTube where the crabs actually assist and help each other get out of the bucket. So the exoteric would be being held back. The esoteric would be dealing with like-minded crabs, right? That can help you. So in universal law and fundamentally understanding Cancer, one would say that if people can hold me back, then the polarity to that is people can actually help me too. And both of these things actually exist. It depends on which level of the polarity do you want to deal with, because the mere fact of people holding you back is so unbelievable based upon, you know, family first and trauma bonds and things of that nature. Somebody helped you pay your rent, and so now you owe them your life. They helped you out of a bind and you owe them something, but karmically the situation could have ran its course. But if there's trauma there, then we don't separate. So if you know any Cancer dominant people, the one thing that you'll notice about them is that they never let go. Even when it's toxic, even when it's no way this thing should be working, whether it's ascended, sun, moon, Venus, they have a hard time with letting go. And so dealing with the astrology, we want to first abstract this and say we are scientists, and in the realm of science we deal in theory, and theory must be either proved or disproved through experimentation. So in factoring in this, we are dealing with the sun, we're dealing with the moon, and we're dealing with the actual location of Cancer. Thus, the things that I will discuss would speak to Sabian symbols and deacons and other contributing factors. And if this resonates with you, then the goal is for you to connect with your soul group as opposed to connecting with your trauma bond. Because family, the attachment to family is based upon, if I'm ever down and out, I'm going to always have somebody to turn to. And what that does is creates the vibration of you being down and out. So if we are going to speak things into proper existence, first and foremost, you have to understand that you'll never be down and out, that you'll always be dealing with a particular level of ascension. And this is found in Cancer as well, because even though Cancer is the crab, it is also the ocean, because Cancer is a water sign. It's actually ruled by Neptune, which the Greeks call Poseidon. Now, the interesting thing about Poseidon is that he is the ruler of Atlantis, and the ruler of Atlantis is shrouded in mystery and metaphysics and Smithsonian conspiracies, and I could go on and on and on, which I'm actually going on and on. I'm working on a documentary now and explaining Atlantis and how it relates to us today. But with that being said, it also ties into this new moon. And so the second decan of Cancer is ruled by Mercury, and the 14th degree Sabian symbol speaks to an old wise man. So the old wise man and Mercury, Neptune, somewhat synonymous when representing ancient wisdom that's forgotten due to the trauma of the ego, the trauma of the everyday life. And so, what makes this new moon significant is that it falls in the fifth house of Leo. Leo rules the fifth house. And so, when we deal with Leo, excuse me, one could imagine Leo to be a lion, but that's not the mythology of Leo. The mythology of Leo is the Sphinx, which is a mythological creature, which is a lion. It's a composite animal. It's many different animals, but one of its key attributes is that it has wings. So Leo is known as a liminal deity, meaning that it gets you from one space to another. And what would seem like magic is also creative pursuits. The most simplest example is someone like Rick Ross, who is not Rick Ross, the actual Rick Ross. He's actually a corrections officer, but he spoke and adapted his rhyme style to Rick Ross's life, and over time accumulated things and now associates himself completely with the Rick Ross persona and nothing of the corrections officer persona. And that's because he makes dope music too. He's creative. And the thing about creative people, the actual pinnacle of creativity is speaking things into existence. And so to bring that back, that is the lion with wings, because you're able to take this creativity and take you from point A to point B. Now, when dealing with people, they always get into um well, I'm not creative and things like that. But when we dealing with the soul and we dealing with spirituality, one can't effectively say what they are not, because we're dealing with latent, hidden energy. And so that thus ties into the old wise man, because the old wise man symbolically just represents that hidden part of us that's just spitting effective information. And with old man terminology, sometimes we're ready for it, sometimes we're not ready for it. We can all reminisce on getting perfect advice and doing the exact opposite thing from that perfect advice. And if only we could go back in time and take that advice, we would be in better positions than we are today. So the wise thing to do, right, is to act upon that wisdom now, so you don't have to live with the regrets of not listening to your intuition. And this is what we call esoteric wisdom. Doing it right the first time. My mother would used to tell me as a child, it's much easier to clean the kitchen correctly the first time than have her wake me up at 11 o'clock just when I'm in my good sleep and point out all of the different things that I didn't clean, all of the different spots that I missed. And now I have to redo it again, and all of the dishes that I didn't wash and putting them back in the sink, so I have to rewash them. Now I'm doing double work when I could have did it right the first time. And intuitively, I knew I was half-assing, but I figured I could get away with it. But when dealing with a new moon, one would simply try to not get away with shit. One would attempt to really work on your craft. Craft being the Sabian symbol for which Venus the 10th degree of Cancer, which means that Venus is conjunct this new moon, and our craft is something that is developing. So the mere fact that it's not complete, the mere fact that it hasn't reached its pinnacle is nothing to be down about. It's just simply stating that the more that you work on it, the more that it will come into realization. There's a lot of things working in our favor towards progression now that Mercury is direct, now that we have all of this energy tied into the 5th house, tied into creativity, meaning that the limits, cliche time, cliche alert, the limits that we put on ourselves are the limits that we have. And so the limits on what you can and cannot do are completely up to you, you know. And then another space which ties this into Cancer is, of course, doing things by yourself is difficult, damn near impossible, and is much simpler when you have like-minded people working towards the things that you want to work towards. And the key to this is making sure everybody is psychologically ready to go in that direction, because as easy as you can get with people and it sounds good and it feels good, you could easily be in a crabs in a bucket situation where nobody's trying to get out the bucket. They're just trying to make sure that you don't get out of the bucket. And those situations exist subconsciously because we're dealing with Cancer, we're dealing with a water sign, we're dealing with emotions and not so much logic. So we want to meditate, that dreaded word, meditate, and soak up old man game, because in basketball, there's a such thing as old man game. And the thing about old man game is that it's very effective. The old man gets to his spots, gets the ball, whether you D'ing him up tight, wherever. It's nothing but net because he sat and worked on that shot over and over and over again. And he knows the shots that's going to go in, and he only takes those shots. So when you deal with intuition and you deal with the soul, in essence, you're dealing with old man game, meaning that it's very effective, very straight to the point. And this could be very simple, but if we're not psychologically sound, then we'll make it hard because we're not following our effective modality. We're dealing with something of confusion, and Cancer can be very confusing based upon preconceived notions. So in order to really understand this, really understand connecting to your soul group, one would have to deal with themselves at a root essence or origin, at a cause level. When you deal with yourself based upon gender, race, class, creed, within those are so like software. If you create a program and I give you this program, if it's in a CD and you put it in your CD player, then that program is all you can play. You can't play something else. You can only play the program that I'm giving you. And so with titles and classes and gender roles and racial classifications are nothing more but different programs that have within them codes that essentially limit the individual from his cosmic root or his cosmic origin. So the reality is either you're a human being, which is very confusing, very hard to navigate. You fall in love, fall out of love, get married, want to get divorced, be happy when you start the job. 2 weeks in, you ready to quit, you hate everybody there, human shit. Or you're cosmic, where you're in sync with the divine and you're led to places that you wouldn't normally be led to, but that's okay because you're following the divine. And you're either a soul having a human experience, or you're a human in possession of the soul. And being in possession of the soul is like being in possession of the sun, right? How can our human hands possess the sun without getting burnt? So obviously we exist from the soul. And if we could start with that and live our lives based upon a cosmic law that supersedes the social law that, let's be honest, it's been created by racist people who clearly know who you are and clearly try to move you away from who you are. Because in this space and time, when you self identify, right, something that really comes from deep within your internals, there's always somebody there to tell you that you're not that. As if to say, when was the last time you heard somebody claim to be an Italian and somebody jumps up and say, "No, you're not the real Italian." Nah, they just want to eat pizza with them. But when we come into knowledge of self, there's always people, agents, right, that redirect you from that, because they redirect you from your sovereignty. Because in this space, in the name of this game, is to keep the gods of the earth ignorant of the fact that they are the gods of the earth. And so when I reference Atlanta, Atlantis, one of the main points is that when you study Atlantis, they were spiritual beings that injected themselves into matter. And over time, they forgot that actual fact that they are spiritual beings. So we have to, at this time, begin to reroute all of the ignorance and come back into the reality that we were spiritual beings first and the human came second. And if we could deal with the root and primary cause, which is this Cancer energy, then we can make great changes. And the reality is that great changes are upon us everywhere you turn, in academia, in law enforcement, in government. Major changes are happening, but as we are on the cusp of an old society segueing into a new society, one has to really find their place, and finding your place is found within your soul group. And your soul group may be very different from your parental upbringing in your familiar structure, your social structure with your friends that you go back with, your work buddies, etc., and so forth. So, putting real effort, exercising your intuition, making that the intention to find your soul group, put you in that direction. The same way as giving yourself excuses, right? I'm too busy to find my soul group. I got too much work to do. My relationship is too toxic. I'm gonna just, I can't let this thing go. All of these different things that we put before our souls, even though they could exist in this same space previously, what we'll notice as we move forward is that we can no longer leverage our ego for the soul. And so you will find yourself in great turmoil and deep depression and emotional turmoil based upon not being in the space that your soul requires you to be in, because you're inundated by the social law and order or social status or gender roles, which I've stated previously are programs that have limits built within them. Your soul is a motherboard, and we want to deal with ourselves at a technology point. The motherboard is for which the whole computer is built. So I would rather deal with my life from a personal, put it together perspective and make it more personal as opposed than a one size fits all, because I just like to do different things. So if we find ourselves in relationships and situations and things like that. We work through all types of things on this channel, and I know that there are new listeners. So the best thing that I could do is advise you to check out hoodmystic.com, check out some of the daily energy readings, read through them. If they vibrate with you, check the videos out. Things like Empty Your Cup, the guided meditations, all of these things are relative to this moment that I speak of presently and future moments. I really enjoy the work that I do because none of the work that I do is just like random, has no purpose. It could always be referenced and cataloged and um, brought up to this present moment and bring you to proper alignment. Um, because the reality of each individual is that they all have a soul, and the difference between a person who's in perception or has proper perception of their soul and their soul group versus the person who doesn't is the only difference. And each individual has a cause. You can't imagine that that person's cause is the same as your cause unless they are. And the only way that you would know is if you stay true to yourself. And by being true to yourself brings you into alignment in the future, that's perfect. And if it doesn't, that's perfect as well. But the idea with the crab with Cancer is getting with like-minded crabs. Because that's just the reality. Some crabs want you in the bucket, some crabs want to get out the bucket. So finding the crabs that want to get out the bucket as you wish to get out the bucket, that's your actual soul group. And understanding the sun, moon, conjunct Venus, and then square Uranus is all deeply documented in www.hoodmystic.com new moon article. So be sure to check that out. Mercury stations direct opposite Pluto the same exact day of this new moon. So from the 31st to the 1st, the moon will station direct. Mercury will station direct. And then from that point on to the 15th of August, it will be in direct shadow. And so through this process, in our daily energy readings, we'll take a look at Mercury as it goes through previous themes and see how, if at all, have these talks towards Mercury, the talks towards this old wise man giving us hidden information and hidden knowledge, as it manifested in remarkable ways, or nothing has happened, but we just want to we just want to see, right? Because when we're dealing with astrology, we're dealing with science and we're dealing with theory, and the only way to understand if a theory is true or not is through experimentation. And even if the experimentation is valid for you, that doesn't make it a fact. Within science, there is no facts. Everything is built upon theory. So within that, you are free to insert your theory based upon your experimentation. So this is your life. We could really take this Mercury retrograde and really understand it, work through the shadow. And then once it gets fully through the shadow on the 15th, we can then use everything that we've gathered and use that as a launching pad into our future. Part of why they say don't do anything during Mercury retrograde, don't sign any contracts, is because why would you make a move if game is being spit to you? We've done that before. You know what? You should do it, but you don't hear the but. You just hear you should do it, and then you just off to the races. But sometimes messages, sometimes things, they come in chunks, and you have to put them together. And that's basically what this Mercury retrograde, station direct, now going direct shadow is about. Putting it all together and never forgetting that this energy is opposed Pluto in retrograde. And what does that mean? Pluto being the planet of transformation, in retrograde for 6 months, it's kind of like taking the day off, chilling for about 6 months. So if you know things without actually going through the transformation, then within that self, it's just it's a lie that you tell yourself to kind of cope, because you want to seem as if you know and that you don't want to be ignorant. But when it comes to spirituality, none of us truly know. We're all learning and relearning based upon acquiescing to a system that our parents acquiesced to, that their parents acquiesced to, unknowingly, generations deep. And now trying to rediscover and deal with all of this ancestral data, everything is off the table. And so if Pluto's going retrograde, that's even more game being sent down. So as the game is being channeled and downloaded, it's like being at 50% of the download and then trying to run the program. Either it's not going to work or it's going to work halfway, and it's going to feel like a fail because you weren't patient and you weren't trusting. So patience and trust and developing is all about this soul group, all about this quote unquote twin flame and all of this. And I think that's really what it really comes down to now. It could be a twin flame situation, but that person could be married and in a happy relationship. And our ideas towards what a relationship in a twin flame is about, what could be just a sexual relationship just because you lonely, right? Because you don't have relationship skills, right? Now, everything your twin flame has to be is the ideal partner, when basically it's just you guys share the same soul groupings, and anything that could happen in this life could happen, but it has nothing to do with your soul grouping. So this could be very simple when you're resonating with somebody and vibrating on the same level. It get real complicated when you want to be in a relationship with them and do all this extra shit. That's not really what we're speaking of when we speak of soulmates and twin flames. It's really a conscious foundation of, we came here at this time in this place to really do something magnificent, change the world, change reality as we know it. And maybe we fall in love, maybe we make love, but I'm past that point in my development where that's even a concern. So finally, in Mercury station direct, one would have to be open to connecting to their soul groups for it to actually happen. One would have to be completely aware and completely in tune with what his soul is saying and be able to follow those prompts outside of their egos, lasciviousness, and all of the things that we want to do sexual with people. So maybe not, right? That's not my twin flame dream, hood mystic. That's not what I was imagining. I'm not trying to hear that. I feel you. I feel you 100%. It's not what I thought as well. And through this process of self-development and exercising that lust, I'm able to see things outside of that and able to connect to people outside of, we should hook up later. That puts a whole different swing on things. And I know how I am when I'm in that mind. I might not even listen to nothing that you're saying if I'm operating from my sacral chakra. So operating from the higher chakras are allowing me to see the people that I need to be with and work with and not lust over. If I need to lust over somebody, I'll just lust over my wife. and I'm perfectly fine with that. So the lunar mansion that this energy sits in is in the Nakshatra Pushya. And long story short, it is very much of a motherly nakshatra in the aspect that it creates, it builds up, and it nurtures. So when working with this nakshatra and factoring in intentions, one would want to utilize compassion, one would want to utilize the long road, because what we use this new moon for, we will see it manifest over the next 30 days. So make sure that is something that you could create, and then you could kind of build up and then sustain and nurture throughout, and really factor and focus on the wisdom that comes from the Brihaspati, or the guru, or the old wise men, because within that knowledge, within that information is redirection. So hope this isn't boring, hope this is interesting. Try to switch up the format a little bit, try to keep people more engaged, and doing some timestamps as well on this post-production. So hopefully you get what you came for in understanding this new moon, maybe getting a deeper perspective on Cancer, and then understanding how to move forward. And speaking of moving forward, we segue into the Chariot. The Chariot, especially in the Thoth Tarot deck, in the ancient Egyptian Tarot deck, it is really speaking to a person that is meditating and actually moving through this meditation in non-movement, getting through life through non-movement. And so there are two parts to this card. There's the actual chariot and the person within the chariot, armored charioteer. And the sign that rules this card is Cancer. So one of these symbols, so you have the Horus, or the Eye of Horus, your third eye, your soul, yourself, your innermost, is sitting within this chariot. And this meditation, this emptiness, or this newness, is actually allowing you to move through work or move through life. And so the idea that makes this card powerful is when you set aside your personal beliefs. When you set aside your personal beliefs, then within a matter of minutes, you're able to be receptive to the divine. But as long as you keep your personal beliefs ahead of the chariot, you'll get nowhere. Because the divine is the primary mover of our lives. And the more that we can focus on this, the more that we'll actually be directed to the places that we need to be directed. This isn't very logical. This isn't very, I'm gonna use my mind, I'm gonna study all day and night. It's simply through meditation, which is the easiest, most difficult things that human beings ever could do. And that's because our perspective is skewed. We think that everything about our lives is centered in the ego. So there's so much to do that the ego presents to us that meditation seems like something that we could get to. But through meditation, we are able to connect to our innermost instantly. And through that connection, we are able to move through life very rapidly and very magically. And when we receive intuition, it's the best to follow it, because this represents our evolutionary path and our connectivity. Simply doing the same things over and over again is a Christian idea of industry that's basically slavery. But the only difference is you get money and you're able to spend the money as you will, but you're still in the bucket. Stepping away from that, it really allows you to understand what's within you. What's within you is the soul. Your body is the container. So the body container is the crab, and what was within the crab is the water, which is symbolized to the ocean. So one doesn't completely disregard their body. We just understand that the body is the container or the vessel for the divine. But within that, everybody seems to focus on the container and never focus on what's within the container. So by directing this perception to that which is within the container, it naturally connects you to the ocean, which is your vast connection space of lives and souls. And even more so, this is a warrior. So the warrior thus represents courage to get to that place. Of course, naturally, before this conversation, one would say, since I'm not a part of my soul group, then that's my reality. But I promise you, by developing this side of yourself, it will bring you closer, you know. Because the chariot, the one thing about the chariot is that it is protected. And protection just means that you can meet all challenges and also have a solution to those challenges because you are protected. When we are protected, it is hard to step into that protection because we don't know, because we don't really truly test. So move forward with courage, move forward with protection towards your soul group, because that is true fulfillment. If you get $1 million and you live in a big house and you're married and you have your dream job and you go on vacations, but you're not connected to your soul group, you will be unfulfilled. There's no way around that. So be sure to follow at Cali_IFE on Instagram. Buy some crystal studs for your girlfriend. Buy her a ring. Buy her 2 rings because she be washing your drawers and she don't say nothing about your little boo boo stains. So buy her some stuff, okay? I mean that. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to get through this information. I've been working on this article and video for a while, just going over it and over again, making sure I got the information down packed, and none of that means nothing if you guys didn't understand it, if it didn't help you or assist you in your understanding of astrology and your application of astrology through experimentation. So the experiment and the intention is, am I part of my soul family? If I am a part of my soul family, how can I cultivate that? How can I fully realize that? Or if I'm not a part of my soul family, how can I get there? Because that's where my fulfillment is. It's not this job. It's not the money that I have. It's not the state that I live in. I can live in this state. I can have this job. I can live in this apartment. But if I'm connected to my soul family, I'm completely fulfilled. I don't need anything because I'm dealing with my cosmic truth. And when you deal with your cosmic truth, there is no politician. There is no boogeyman. There is no monster. The boogeyman and the monster is that we've forgotten our spiritual connection. That's the boogeyman. And as soon as we remember, we're able to finally say, I'm happy or I'm comfortable because I'm with the people that truly love me at my essence and not at a surface level. So, in conclusion, we should be able to move protected and move forward with the confidence to face any adversity, any negative thoughts or feelings that we hold on to, any feelings of laziness, any feelings of finances, bad luck. All of that is going to be resolved because we're disciplined enough to focus on the contents and not the container. oh, this container has a nick in it. A container that has a nick in it and a perfect cup, they each hold the same soul substance. So even with Cancer energy, it's always cool to take a rest, to be retrospective, to make sure to make your next move the best move. That's really the energy that we're working with. Um, as Mercury stations direct, we can begin to transcend and really work towards those higher spiritual goals. And those higher spiritual goals, we may not be fully aware of those higher spiritual goals, but focusing on the soul is going to reveal those if we can put that seed into this new moon soil. Uh, so it's a remarkable time if we're able to really stay soul centered. I'm only saying this because I've been soul centered for a while now, and things that I've been working towards and things that were very empty and vast and made no sense to me are just now making sense, 9 years, 15 years later. And so all of that, I could have had these realizations much sooner, but I was deep into my ego, deep into the egocentric truth that if I had enough money, if I had a girl with a big enough booty, if I had a nice enough car, I wouldn't have none of the problems that I have. And that within itself is my problem. So working to get these egocentric things and attaining them and still having that emptiness and still having that void, and then going through these mounds and going on these sojourns and really connecting to the ancestral spirits. Now I know for a fact that my purpose in this life is to connect with my soul group and continue the work that we've said that we were going to do in this space and time in previous lifetimes. This is that time. And I'm saying that for myself, but I'm saying that for everybody. It's time to flip the page. And once we flip the page, we'll notice that the page is blank and we have a pen. So, what are you going to write? Are you going to continue the same trauma that has been bestowed upon you? Or do you begin to reconnect the spiritual truth that was also bestowed upon you, but it's much deeper? You might have to work a little bit harder and be in spaces for a little bit longer and be a little bit more patient for that truth to be revealed. Because the thing about spirit and the thing about soul is that it's not going to reveal you things when you're too immature to handle it. If I was revealed all of this information in my ignorance, I would have continuously inflated my ignorance and spent time and resources that were valuable to the soul and just wasted it. I've shown through dedication and diligence that I'm ready and I'm prepared for whatever spirit bestows upon me. And so in that space, I'm moving forward, the chariot and the charioteer. So I appreciate everybody for joining me on this live. Be sure to click the links in the description to support this content. I'm completely independent. On top of that, raising a family and still trying to find time to present this information because I love my family with all my heart. But this is something that, shares a space with each and every one of you, is the deep love that I have for my family. You are my family. You are my soul group, you know, because the reality, you know, millions of people, billions of people in this world, all types of things you could be doing at this moment, but you're listening to me speak a specific message. And so as the veils lessen, the content that I'm putting out is more speaking to that ancestral truth that's been hidden from us. And from there, we begin to make moves. And from there, we begin to create and write our lives the way we see fit. So All that being said, just want to appreciate everybody for joining me on the live. Appreciate everybody for sharing the video, liking the video, subscribing to my channel, telling people about the Hood Mystic. Shout out to Masterly Foolish. Just shared another one of my videos earlier today. I can't really express how much, I appreciate that man, or that woman. I don't even know. He's just masterly foolish, I don't know who it is, but he definitely a divine source, appreciate that, brother. So with all that being said, thank you guys for joining me. Be sure to check out www.hoodmystic.com for the article where I simply just scratched the surface. The article is much more in depth than this video. So, and we'll be talking about this energy moving forward. I just kind of wanted to set the table and begin to work and move towards finding our soul groups, because that's the most important thing moving forward. Peace, peace, peace. Everybody have a wonderful day. I will see you guys later.